Welcome back to the championship match here in the Bird's Nest. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined by Chris Papa Smithy Smith, Joshua Jat Leesman, and Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley. I knew about Jay Chow. I knew about Against the Current. No one told me about the Dragon. What was that?
I didn't know about the Dragon either. That was nuts.
That took me so off guard, but what an opening for this stadium, for this arena. Again, as those two teams stepped out on the stage, I can only imagine what overcame them, seeing the sea of people and hearing the crowd react to them stepping on stage.
Yeah, just being able to now refocus. They're running through their checklist on stage right now, getting ready so we can get in the picks and bans for that first game. And it's just about finding your zone. It's just like any other game. You have to think that way. Once you're in Summoner's Rift, it's the same.
And as they're getting ready, we're getting ready too. It wouldn't be a true final if we weren't joined by our partners from the LPL broadcast, Brazil's CB Low, and the crews from the LCK, alongside 7 other regions who help bring the action to fans across the globe. Here they are now. I love to see the energy and action from all of them. Now, to appreciate the runs that these teams took to get here, let's take a brief look at the bracket. SKT, they arrived to Beijing after winning back-to-back 5-game series against Misfits and RNG, while Samsung Galaxy, they pulled off the upset against Longzhou and closed out a 4-game series against Team WE.
And I've got to say, this has been the most exciting knockout stage we have ever had. Super competitive in the quarterfinals and the semifinals. It has just been a treat to watch.
Yeah, it's the most number of total games we've had up until this point in a World Championship, and I'm hoping for 5 today.
And I think it might be the best Worlds ever, guys. We haven't even seen the grand final yet with the innovation, with all the teams, with all the grandeur here. This has been amazing.
Crazy that we get to say that, right? Now, looking at the first rematch in a World Final, what about this matchup has changed since 2016?
Well, SKT's had to play more games. One more game to get to the finals, but we've said they've looked a lot more vulnerable. And also, Samsung is no longer a massive underdog. But looking at SKT's path right there, the one loss was actually to AHQ when they fell to a Fizz that was blind picked in there. Then it got to the bracket stage for these guys. They had that incredibly close game against Misfits where they got caught up by a few surprise picks in the Leona that really stands out. And then also another incredibly close series against RNG. There have been 4 individual games that if SKT would have lost, they would not have been on this stage today. Elimination games, they're 4-0.
And to me, so much of it has been about FLICKR, as it always is. But this year, when they've needed him most, he has played better than ever before, which I honestly didn't really think was possible.
Let's look at the flip side of the matchup. Papa Smithy, talk to me about Samsung Galaxy's path over this last 12 months.
I mean, honestly, 2 years in a row, they come in 3rd seed in terms of fan expectation. Longzhou was supposed to be the big new dog here, but unfortunately fell to Samsung in the quarterfinals. SKT are back. But that expectation, the reform this year, just their level up from group stages to knockout has been a treat to see, because we haven't seen the final form of Samsung Galaxy in the LCK. I think we're seeing it at Worlds this time around.
And it's going to be so exciting to find out if no one can crack the case. You know, can SKT show you a way to beat it? Because in the knockout stage so far, Samsung have looked pretty untouchable.
I mean, unlike last year's matchups, there are actual questions about whether or not SKT is even favored in the series coming into it. And that, to me, is an absolutely crazy thing to say. But I do, as we take a look at Samsung Galaxy's road to get here, not as easy a road in terms of the group stage. They were up against Royal Never Give Up, as well as G2 Esports from the European LCS.
Yeah, looking at this one, it has been a rocky group stage, but their path to finals more dominant than anyone else, with a 3-0 over Longzhou and a 3-1 against Team WE.
And that's why we return to your point, Azael, about whether or not anyone has cracked the code. Has anyone figured out how to beat Samsung's strategy? And that will be for SKT to show us, Jat.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if SKT has settled on a strategy, because I know they tried to pull out the Leona from the Misfits series. They also were doing a bunch of late-game hyperscaling in the group stage, but to me, I think they may have settled on Huni playing for his lane and everyone else trying to play around Huni. That, I think, has been when they have looked at their best, and that's what they needed to do to take down RNG in the semis.
I know in previous years, the fact that they were bringing out new stuff in semis wouldn't have fazed me. I would have thought, okay, they're still holding on for some special stuff specifically for the final. But this year, it does feel like the SKT bag of tricks has been drawn to its absolute minimum. They really have had to show time and time again, and having to play all 16 games to get here, that basically everything has been thrown out there, and now they kind of have to reel back and decide which of it is actually suitable for their opponent today, because not everything will work against Samsung Galaxy.
It really is such a juxtaposition because it's this team that have had to reach and to grab and to find new strategies and to figure things out as they've gone along. And for Samsung, it's been all about control. It's been all about playing this very measured style and damn near perfecting it. They have looked so good at controlling the game, at limiting their opponent's opportunities, and more importantly, limiting their mistakes.
And we talk a little bit about the styles. Let's talk about a few of the key matchups. Let's go straight to the top by CuVee and Huni.
Yeah, that's really a featured matchup for this one. Even though last year it would be FLICKR Crown, both these teams have played heavily through their top laners. They have 2 of the 3 highest damage percentages in the tournament. You can see Huni, a 46% forward percentage. That's the percentage of time he's beyond the halfway point in his lane. And he actually doesn't get that much help from his jungle. He's just playing that on his own.
He has one style. He needs to play for himself. He needs to get advantages around his lane, whereas CuVee kind of has the tougher job of both picking to contain Huni in the top lane, but also roam around. He's entrusted in getting the bot lane ahead, and when they get that bot lane turret, 5 out of 6 times in their wins, bot lane turret into the rest of the map falling. It's very structured for Samsung Galaxy.
And then I think the question to me becomes, can Huni make CuVee play his game? Can he force him to stay in a side lane the whole time? If you can establish enough pressure, if you can get strong enough on your own in one of these split push focus picks, you can make the person stay there and do nothing but answer you.
All while realizing that the more attention gets thrown to the top lane, what that changes for the rest of the map, right? We've talked about the bot lanes and how, to a degree, some of them have suffered based on Huni's play style.
Yeah, and we've discussed this a lot. Neither of these teams' bottom lanes have been the bottom lanes of everyone else where everyone just crashes down there constantly. No, these teams have been playing 4-1. They're drawing attention away from that area and just trying to spread the map out a lot more than everyone else.
And while CuVee's job might not be easy in trying to contain Huni, let's talk about another player who definitely does not have an easy job for himself today. That would be Crown in the mid lane up against FLICKR. We've already kind of teased that, you know, the fact that in 2016 it was all about whether or not Crown can beat FLICKR, can rise above him. But it seems like it's a different matchup, a different objective this time around, Xayah.
Yeah, you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. And I think that's going to be the assignment here for Crown. He really just needs to pick intelligently, to play to follow FLICKR around the map, try to match what he does, push him in, these sorts of things. You can't let FLICKR do what he wants to do because he will take over the game.
I mean, he's been Superman in some of these games, the Galio games against RNG, papering over 2v2 problems, papering over Huni losing lane and trying to visit. So getting him off any of these first roam champions like the Galio, maybe even the Talia, I think so important for Samsung.
And I think for Crown, he has a good mindset coming into this year's Worlds. Better than what he had last year when he was thinking he was going to have to be the FLICKR killer. No, he just has to allow his team to be the FLICKR killer. Match whatever you can in the mid lane and just relax.
All right, now it's that time. It's that question of the evening, gentlemen. Get ready. Do you think Samsung Galaxy has what it takes to disrupt the reign of SK Telecom T1 here in the Bird's Nest of all places? Papa Smithy, we're going to start with you.
You know, every time we're in this spot where there's SKT1 in the grand final, we tell you a familiar story, and by you I mean the viewers, of a team that started very vulnerable in the group stage, this Korean team. They had to adapt, but by the time they hit the knockout stage, they started steamrolling the competition and were very quickly front runners for the Summoners Cup. And I think we have that sleeping giant in the final. But to me, for once, it's not SK Telecom T1. I actually think that Samsung Galaxy, with their obliteration of Longzhu Gaming and then backing it up by denying late-game team fights from Team WE, are going to be good enough, even with FLICKR playing amazing, even with the clutch nature of SKT. I think Samsung's going to take it.
Papa says the reign ends here. Jat, what are you thinking?
He did the switcheroo with his story there. I really like that. Yeah, never bet against, and I'm not going to switcheroo, SKT, is the saying that we've all come to learn because of how clutch they are in the big moments. And I agree, if we look at the knockout stage, you'd say Samsung has looked stronger. But that's because SKT hasn't necessarily settled on a strategy. They've lost a game to Blitzcrank, they've lost a game to Leona, they've lost a game to Vayne. Other than that, that's one loss in the knockout stage. And I don't think Samsung is going to bring that same level of surprise. I think they're actually going to bring a level of familiarity to SKT. You look at the LCK playoffs, SKT 3 over Samsung. I think it's definitely a closer matchup here, and it's going to be 3-2 for SKT tonight.
There you have it.
I think it's really tough to call. SKT has shown weakness this tournament. Ineffective jungling, poor laning phases from Bang & Wolf, but they've also shown us a lot of strength. Excellent team fighting. The best mid lane play we have ever seen in League of Legends history from FLICKR, and an incredibly lane dominant style from Huni. And to me, the key to beating Samsung lies in disrupting their game plan. We saw that from RNG in groups, and though Samsung did have an incredibly impressive knockout stage, both Longzhu and WE failed to do just that. And I think with 1 week of preparation, Huni's polarizing top lane play and FLICKR's mid lane dominance will dictate the pace of the game and earn SKT their 3rd straight World Championship title.
Oh my goodness, we got 5 games last year. Hopefully we get 5 more games this year. It's just about which way the scale tips as we head over to Freak. Deficio and Kobe for the call. Bang gives us his thoughts on FLICKR's continued dominance at Worlds every year.
그냥 뭐 정말 그 메타가 바뀌거나 그럴 때도 가끔씩은 이제 흔들릴 때도 있는데 결국에는 마지막에는 가장 그러니까 이제 롤드컵 시리즈나 썸머 때나 이제 마지막이 다가오면 다가올수록 좀 굉장히 그 어떤 다른 미드 선수들보다 기복 없고 정점에서는 마지막에는 결국 정점에서는 그런 선수인 것 같아요.
Welcome to the Castle Desk, ladies and gentlemen, for the 2017 League of Legends World Championship. My name is David Freak Turley, joined here by my 2 wonderful analysts, Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler, Martin Deficio Lunga. And the question I have is, are we crowning a new world champion today?
Ooh, you're asking us to predict now? We're not in the analyst desk, but I think it's likely. I think Samsung are looking so good at the moment.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that Ambition said in his interview that was so telling was that last time they faced SK Telecom, they felt the need to have surprise picks to actually overcome this legend that is SKT. But this time around, it actually feels like SK Telecom have been the ones reaching for new picks.
Exactly, and it also feels like it's SKT who needs to look at Samsung and say, okay, how do we beat their current strategy? Because it's been so good during the knockout stages here. We have seen a lot of focus around strong bot lane picks. You have Ambition, who's controlling the jungle and the vision. And on SKT's side, it's been just about FLICKR mainly, and the fact that he can carry this team all the way to a final.
So the question is it the SKT clutch factor, or is it Samsung Galaxy, who are looking actually a bit better? And I want to actually liken this to the 2014 run of Samsung White, where they didn't have a domestic title, but people called them the best team in the world coming into it. And they smashed the Korean champions Samsung Blue 3-0 in the semifinal. And here's Samsung Galaxy smashing the Korean champions Longju in the quarterfinal and heading in with a 6-1 game record throughout the top 8. Here, likely the favorites against SKT in the final.
All right, we're jumping straight into the pick and ban phase here of game 1. Jace, Rakan, and Sejuani already banned by Samsung.
Yeah, Huni has had target Jace bans all throughout this tournament. He's actually played Jace more than any of the other top laners and has been a huge part of SK Telecom's early side pressure that they've been getting.
I think Samsung were ready for a potential first pick Galio, and that's why they banned the Sejuani on blue side. SKT, of course, removing Kalista as well.
Yeah, Janna here is the obvious one that has not gone through, though, and Samsung will be very happy to pick this one up. Janna has been a champion that every single team in this meta has been so happy to build a composition around.
Now, we, Kobe, were talking a lot about Varus as a key pick here because Samsung has focused so much on having that strong bot lane.
Yeah, we watched the VODs of their match versus Team WE, and it was all about Ruler getting this pick so early on that they were able to have bottom lane control and then bring in the other parts, the top lane of the Shen pick or the mid lane from the Galio to play around that bottom lane and get snowballing.
And Quickshot talked to Koma before the games. We saw it in the pre-show. Koma said they need to find a way to stop Samsung's bot lane from winning early on. That is why they picked the Varus so early here for Bang, to try and make sure he's not losing the bottom lane. But I like the Xayah pick here from Samsung and the Malzahar.
Early priority on Malzahar. You'd expect Jarvan based in the tier list to match up the jungle against Peanut here. They're not going for it.
Yeah, exactly. Samsung are not a big Jarvan team. Ambition is not a big fan of it. They don't really play top lane either at the moment. So they let it go, and normally they like Kha'Zix or Lee Sin instead of the Jarvan.
And it's very interesting that they're willing to early pick this Malzahar for a Crown, because Crown has been a huge discussion point for Samsung Galaxy this year. Whereas you remember back to last year in the finals, Crown was one of the best players on the team and a huge part of trying to take down FLICKR. He even got the solo kill on FLICKR in game number 1. But Malzahar is this champion. You're not looking for solo kills. You're looking even at a CS deficit early on and being more useful later.
And you bring engage for your team, which is really good against split pushers like Huni. If you can always force a fight in the mid to late game, Huni has to TP in and join, and his split pushing days are over. SKT, though, they actually removed the Jarvan here, so Ambition can still go for either Kha'Zix or Lee Sin as one of his preferred choices in the jungle. I like the Syndra ban.
Again, if we're seeing a lot of top lane bans as well, Gnar really comes to the forefront of my mind. Because they've already banned out the Jace, this is a very possible blind pick. Everybody willing to play this champion into any other matchups besides the Jace, and with the Shen also being banned out, it does look like that will be a split push advantage.
We're probably going to get the Kennen here coming in from CuVee. That is normally the answer to Gnar up in the top lane.
His answer. Almost no one else plays it,
Well,
but
his answer,
it's
man.
what he does. AP Kennen.
He's the meta now.
And
He
there's,
is.
There's a reason for that, because to me it is a very risky answer. Yes, AP Kennen can have some team fight interactions here, but especially just 1v1 with the Gnar, jungler advantage means a huge amount in that matchup, and these top laners have not gotten a lot of jungler intervention.
All right, here we are in the ends of champs. Like you can see where all the champions have gone. Cassiopeia in the mid lane for FLICKR. Wolf on his 8th Lulu game of the tournament. He's played 9 unique champions and almost half an hour on Lulu here. He is on comfort.
Cassiopeia as well coming in last year from FLICKR. He saw the blind Malzahar and said, you know what? I can destroy that guy in the laning phase. We've not seen a lot of Cassiopeia in the knockout stage, but it is still such a powerful laner if you are good with the champion.
Yeah, and we do have Peanut on the Gragas as well. So much about early game in the current meta has these two roles linked. We've said so many times throughout this tournament, is a lot about mid and jungle in the early game, and then you can start to transition that through to Vision, which does get that bottom lane control we always come back to.
Exactly, and the plan here makes a lot of sense from SKT's side, as we have a little bit of confusion of how far away do you walk for the handshake when the coach is all the way on the other side of the stage.
Well, it's a long track here. They're going to learn, and you heard Dash talk about the 100-meter dash earlier in this one. Maybe they can run a quarter mile back and forth to their teams and the coaches.
I think they're just worried the dragon was going to come back. That is a healthy amount of respect given.
Still though,
Spawn till 35 minutes. They're okay for now.
they're okay for now. I look at the SKT drafter and I'm like, okay, they identify, get a winning mid lane matchup for FLICKR, get a bot lane matchup that can go even at least against Samsung, and they got that in this draft here. Lulu Varus is so strong in the 2v2 lane, and the Cassiopeia can win early.
And we'll have to continue to check in on the top lane 1 versus 1. Huni into CuVee's Kennen.
Game 1 of the 2017 League of Legends World Championship Final about to begin. We are on the Summoner's Rift, and it is going to be a barn burner of a match. SK Telecom T1, 3-time world champions, looking for number 4. Samsung Galaxy were a game away from dethroning them this time last year, and now in front of an even larger crowd in Beijing, China, hoping to be the second Samsung team to win Worlds.
In order to do that, they are definitely going to have to deal with this mid lane. FLICKR on Cassiopeia is one of the player and champion combinations that have been the most brutal for the opposing mid laner. Crown now is going to have a lot of defensive work to do. Cassiopeia can take off the shield very easily with the spammability of her spells and then continue to punish him, because Malzahar, very few options for trading early on.
That's also where I get a little bit scared when I see Ambition on Zac, because Zac's early game is not very good either. It's not a strong 2v2 fight around the mid lane from Samsung until later in the game. They definitely need a Malzahar ulti, and probably even more to actually beat the Cassiopeia and Gragas. So SKT will get that control they're looking for.
Of note, you're seeing the bot laners very focused on keeping the marksman alive, barrier heal on both these squads right here. One of the fun innovations, I guess we can say, about Worlds so far this year. Our defense have been popular. Bot lane's been a very important lane, and keying very heavily on keeping those marksmen alive in the team fights. Ruler and Bang have been 2 of the world's best for quite a long time. We'll see how much they can put in this game.
And with Peanut getting the leash on top side, starting red and heading downward, Bang and Wolf get the early control of this bottom side. You can see the first thing that Wolf goes for is the brush control on the side lane to try and threaten Ruler there. And he did miss the last hits, so the early gold advantage over to the Varus lane here with Lulu on the brush control.
Everything counts in the early game.
20
Get whatever
gold.
you can, but more importantly for SKT, they're trying to get that early push in their favor after Samsung comes a little bit later to the lane here. Meanwhile though, look at mid lane. FLICKR's already pushing Crown to his own turret, level 1.
And we talk about this matchup a little bit more in depth. Whenever we speak with any of the mid laners, the biggest frustrations with Malzahar and why we don't see him picked more frequently is the difficulty with CSing early. So the theory here for FLICKR, behind just shoving the wave into the turret, is that Malzahar already isn't able to get those last hits, and it makes it even more difficult as the turret shots are coming through. But That being said, Crown actually doing okay getting those last hits.
And then we have to add on that Malzahar's damage in the early game before his ulti is ready is not very high. It's easy for Cassiopeia to kill the small Voidlings and then simply out-trade Crown.
And we're seeing that jungle and mid lane link on display here already as Peanut goes for a bottom lane invade, drops his ward at the Raptor Pit, and then gets vision with Q first. So he's checking all of the boxes, being safe and looking both ways before he crosses the Krug camp.
Gets to cook it. He doesn't waste the W active on the Blast Cone. That's a coded interaction with the ability. So everything's ready. He's going to be just fine taking away Krug. That's easy to do. Ambition on his first recall should have enough for the Poacher's Knife. And now we're going to see CoreJJ sees him and pushes them back over the wall.
All right, Peanut will be safe for now. Now, a big thing about Samsung in the knockout stage of Worlds was they tried to play more for the early and mid game. They stopped playing just for late game team fights, and it was so focused around strong bot lanes. Because then Ambition will play bottom side. See what happens mid first, though, because Peanut is on his way.
Damage out of the silence. Crown's going to have his teammate coming in soon enough. But look at FLICKR taking plenty of damage. It's just the easy outplay 1v1. Crown gets out and he sees Peanuts nearby.
You have to be very careful chasing into Malzahar when those Voidlings are up, especially since there's not vision to know that Zach is not going to be there for a counter gank. So that's why FLICKR pulls off on the aggression and does not continue the chase.
Even if FLICKR does pull back on the aggression, bot lane's been looking good for SKT. A farm lead for them. Now the engage on the silence, but just in time, bot SM comes up. Summoner heal out of FLICKR also to build some distance. But first Summoner spell lost by SKT.
That's some good little plays around the mid lane from Crown and Ambition, of course, joining in here. They need to do this. They need to make sure Crown does not fall too far behind. When he played the quarterfinal against Longshore and he blind picked the Malzahar, Syndra was the answer from BDD, and Crown died early on in lane. He got destroyed. Same thing cannot happen here. Yes, you can fall down in CS as long as you're staying alive and you're farming.
I want to talk about the bot lane, though. We talked about it a second ago. Bang and Wolf heavily ahead right now in the 2-on-2. Priority on Varus, the takeaway. And happy to play Lulu into Janna, a better laner but a worse team fighter. So far, that laning phase is going well.
And this again, the counter to the Samsung knockout strategy that we see here from SKT. Get a stronger 2v2 lane. Do not allow Ruler to control bottom side. Do not allow CoreJJ to roam early. And suddenly, Samsung don't actually have a lane on the bottom side they can play around. It's on top side where Kennen is winning.
That's why we put so much emphasis on this Varus pick for Ruler in Champion Select, and SK Telecom very clearly taking that one away. Here's some stats on your screen to just emphasize your point, Deficio, as far as the way that Samsung likes to play it.
Yeah, this is against other teams in the top 8, against the South Korean champions in Longshore, the 3-0 there with 3 Tristana games, a bunch of Varus ones against Mystic and Co from Team WE. This had been a formula for success in Samsung's run.
And one of the reasons for the success of the formula is the amount of rewards you can get out of that bottom lane turret, if that is the first one to go. With Ardent Sensor being so heavily important in this meta, you get to rotate your support and AD carry with the extra pushing power, and you kind of chain the objectives.
See top lane right now. Peanut is on the way here. Q has been pushing this lane non-stop. Peanut is spotted though, and Kennen is level 6, so you really gotta respect the potential counter gank from a Zach in there against a level 6 Kennen.
So far, so good with the wards. So you can see Ambition gonna spot his opponent as well. The ward's not gonna be knocked down, even though it was revealed by the Scryer's Bloom. And Ambition's been able to hold up pretty nicely in the mid lane, in the jungle, I should say, since he walks through the mid lane, holding a decent farm lead and getting a pretty solid recall off as well. But not any wards yet for Ambition. He didn't go for the Tracker's Knife that Peanut had.
Always a lot of value on control ward from Samsung's side, and there's no vision on bottom lane here. We have actually Ambition moving down. He's
in fog.
Looking for that first gank.
And that's the flash to the bang, but now the chase on the Wolf lanes. The Q, the auto's gonna pull him in a bit more, but there's no follow through on that one. Either way, they get another flash out, and that is the second Ambition gank to force a summoner out of SKT.
Yeah, we'll see if the flash being down here on Bang does relieve some of the pressure, allow Ruler to catch up on the CS here.
Oh, that's not a Void Link. There's the back around, gets plenty of damage with the Voidlings. FLICKR gonna force to be run away. 100 HP left on him, flashes. I think he might have been expecting E to come back from cooldown. It just did now. And as FLICKR now out of summoners in the mid lane.
Yeah, there were so many small Voidlings just hitting him right there, setting up a great ulti from Crown. And again, this is so important for Samsung. The Crown is not losing lane.
You have to watch the cascading effect of the aggression here. There are 2 summoner spells down on SK Telecom, the 2 most important ones. of the flashes for their carries. In addition, actually, FLICKR's heal still not back up from the earlier visit, so Samsung do have this opening, and they will be looking to punish these carries.
We have to remember here, Malzahar only gets better the longer we get into the game. Now the ulti's available from his side after level 6, and suddenly he's quite a threat when he's roaming around, and his damage gets much, much better in the late game.
You talk about threats roaming around. I want to key into Wolf really quickly. Part of the bot lane lead is not just the CS that Bang has got, but because of the push lead, CoreJJ has not been able to grab all the coins. Actually, Wolf has earned several hundred more gold so far because of lane dominance.
Yeah, people talk about how broken the coin is and how effective the item is. A lot of it does hinge on actually picking up the gold that's sitting on the ground. Very good point to bring up there, Freak. And it does have huge ramifications for the early towers that we keep coming back to. Building that Ardent Sensor and being the first one to complete it greatly accelerates that confrontation.
And we talked about how SKT tried to counter the Samsung strategy of having a strong bot lane with this Lulu Varus. Well, on the top side, CuVee right now with the counter pick is doing extremely well, and look at that. He's actually not rushing towards AP Kennen. He's building AD with fervor of battle. He's trying to become a pure split pusher to keep Huni down.
Yeah, this has been something that's incredibly important and highly and hotly debated here for these two top laners, because they have been the two most successful, but very different. As I said on the analyst test, you know, CuVee has had the tendency to join the team for team play so much more often than Huni throughout this tournament. But now, as you said, without going the AP build here for Kennen, he would want to keep that pressure in the side lane.
Exactly. AP Kennen is much stronger when he joins team fights compared to AD Kennen, who's a pure, like, stay in your side lane and win it. And Huni had the chance to counterpick top. They could have locked in Cassiopeia earlier. They already knew it was Malzahar mid lane, but they wanted the Gnar so badly. Maybe because Huni didn't feel like he had a good answer to it in case CuVee picked it.
Well, maybe because of the tendencies of these players, they have been able to pull off a little bit of a bait here. There's nothing saying that Huni has to continue with the other way. You know, Gnar very clearly could still join the rest of the team, and SK Telecom can pull off a very big combo with the Cassiopeia, Gragas, and Gnar.
It just forces SKT to play differently, because Huni has been playing for himself, for his lane, all tournament long. It forces him now to play with the team instead. Use your TP on the bottom side. Join the big team fights. We know he can do it on the Gnar. We've seen it before from him. It's just a different style we see in this first game from both teams.
And it's fun to see. I actually respect the hell out of what Samsung did right here, which is to still play things in CuVee's wheelhouse and a style they're pretty comfortable with, but force Huni into a play style that he hasn't shown nearly as much strength with. He's always on the Jace, the split pushers, and if he does that, he will lose the game for the team. I like what CuVee and Samsung Galaxy have done here with this.
And we have to see if the confidence Huni got from the game 5 against RNG, where he was on the Gnar, where he made the big engage after the Drake went down and SKT won that game. He needs to do the same in this first game here against Samsung.
Let's talk a little bit more about Huni, because there's an immense amount of pressure on his shoulders. SK Telecom replace a couple of players every single year. Often the top lane and the jungle, you know, have these rotations, and there's so much, you know, history that he has to fill in. You know, the shoes are very big here for Huni, and we've seen how much pressure and how much focus has been given to him here. Now, on the biggest stage that he has ever played in, will he be able to step up for the organization?
Also really feels like top lane has been the most criticized role on SKT since Marin left the team. It was hard for Duke to have the impact he wanted. We saw Untaro play during the year as well. Huni didn't play all the games on the side of SKT in 2017, and it's been hard for him to kind of lock down which kind of style do they want to play from top side. Now it is a split pushing focus, except for this game, where Huni needs to join the team.
Look at the stun as the marks are timed out there, but CuVee nearly got himself a couple hundred extra damage on the Huni, but still you can see this laning phase almost cresting plus 30 now, 12 minutes in. It is getting larger and larger throughout the game. It's beating CuVee's statistical average when he's against a player like Huni, and CuVee was already the #1 laner at Worlds so far in the top lane. He is doing immensely well here, but it's only keeping the game roughly equal. You can see still plus 15 in the bot lane for SKT. FLICKR up 10 as well.
But it's a great start on Samsung's side with the Mountain Drake, with winning top, and with the fact again that Crown is doing great in the mid lane. He's not getting punished at all for this blind big Malzahar, and FLICKR's trying now.
Doesn't get stunned though, and the silence means there's no more chase to be had as FLICKR just, you know, takes down some Voidlings, but you can see he's kind of losing these trades. This is the pick that FLICKR wanted. Crown blinded it early on. They gave him 2 bans in the second phase to narrow down the pool a little bit. FLICKR, though, with the Cassiopeia next up, is not really doing maybe what you expect with the matchup, and here's Samsung Galaxy starting to get what they expect out of their bot lane. A lot of pressure down here.
Again, we return to that 6 out of 7 of the first turrets for Samsung have been in the bottom lane. Ruler and CoreJJ slowly whittling away at this objective.
Yeah, if you look at the items, it's the Warhammer and the BF sword for Ruler here, just stacking as much AD as possible against attack speed, and then Ninja Tappy on the side of Bang. So Bang is not really dealing much damage in return, and Ruler's just been able to take over the lane after the first few backs.
So a 13-minute first turret for Samsung Galaxy. All I saw Ambition do was a single gank that blew Bang's flash, and the rest of it was heads up 2-on-2 with an arguably weaker laning phase. SKT got counter pick and priority and the rolls down here. So far, step 1, good for Samsung Galaxy.
So much so that Ambition even gets to move in and take away the blue buff here as SK Telecom are just bleeding control of the map. What this then allows Samsung to do is rotate their bottom lane over to the mid lane and actually have the ability to push in FLICKR himself.
Yeah, FLICKR is trying to actually be more proactive in his lane, so QSS comes in early to use it against Crown's ulti and try and see if he can actually win the 1v1, but the 1v1 are kind of gone now because the first tower is already dead. The map is wide open. Everyone is going to start roaming around, and FLICKR probably won't get an easy chance to just duel Crown.
And it's double TP versus single TP, so Crown down on the bot side, of course, with that free time. You can see a blue buff stolen back by SKT is a good consolation for them. They get that same blue that Ambition had stolen earlier, and it's crucially on FLICKR himself. Now you've got to watch for what the lane assignments are. Samsung Galaxy putting their dual lane in the mid. The question is who can actually answer, because Crown's about to reach bot lane tier 2 and no one's getting that farm yet.
You can tell the tension rising in this game. Now the ultimate's blown for both AD carries there, but the opening of the final series here at Worlds, and both teams trying to stick to the game plan, but SKT,
they're slow on the play. They're missing half a minion wave right here. Bang just now coming in, and he can't duel a Malzahar. The Rage Blade's not dead. He's got a Blasting Wand in inventory and a Ninja Tabby. Both finally shows, but that is a minion wave late, and the work is starting to happen now. Samsung Galaxy playing 1-3-1 and being faster to play than SKT.
Exactly. This is a very rough spot to be in for SKT here. They're losing the map. They're losing control around mid. Rift Tower is getting started by Samsung already.
And it's the Rift Tail going to be grabbed up as well. A trade of blue buffs is fine, but they got first turret, Mountain Drake, and now Rift Tail with what's supposed to be the weaker early game jungler in Zac. He got banned out of the primary pool, his first Zac of Worlds, and Samsung Galaxy win in the early game.
Ambition had more pressure in the early game than Peanut, with the Gragas that was taken early on in the draft to also deny that from Ambition himself. And that's mid tower down now. Bot tower already died earlier. This is becoming quite a large gold lead.
Now what you want to do as soon as you get these outer turrets down for Samsung is start to clear out SK Telecom's wards, because Zac benefits so heavily from the Fog of War being able to get these big engages, and you can then follow that crowd control up with the Malzahar that we keep highlighting, who has now gotten the level 2 in his ultimate. So that is a very powerful initiation tool that Samsung would like to utilize at this stage in the game, but they have to clear out the vision of SK Telecom first.
And I like that you talk about vision so much, because between these two teams, there's a very large difference in how many control wards they actually place on the map. Samsung are amazing at getting full control and deny vision from the enemy team. And SKT, on the other hand,
they are the most extreme numbers that we researched at this entire tournament. Samsung Galaxy first place in the control wards placed during the knockout stage there, and SK Telecom almost 20 less per game in last.
Yeah, so SKT relied more on having a lot of engage in their comps. And when they then see you, even out of position or slightly out of position, they are so decisive. They engage instantly. In this game here, they have the Gragas and they have the Varus to start fights. But Ruler's ulti is there to try and prevent it, and CoreJJ's disengage.
It really is beautiful to watch Samsung's controlled style of play here. Yeah. Checkbox number 1 that we mentioned, bottom lane turret. That's off the list. Then they're able to utilize all these control wards to secure the vision and go for that engage that you're talking about, Freak.
And look at this, you just see darkness on the map in so many places. Baron is not up yet, but I expect that River Fog of War to just persist for the next 3 minutes until it does spawn. Double mounted Drake means easy to rush that one down as well. And they've got a Blade of the Ruin King top laner. If CuVee joins, they've actually got a Baron Rush on their hounds. Malzahar's pretty good at it as well. This could be a lot of great things. Samsung Galaxy are so well poised as they transition into the mid and late game.
And SKT can't walk into the river because suddenly they just get Malzahar ulted and they die almost instantly. Only really FLICKR at this point could actually face check with his QSS, but you never want to send in your mid laner first. And the fact that SKT are now sitting with this draft here who needed to do well in mid lane in the early game, it makes it so hard to start the next fight.
I think that we should actually toggle SK Telecom's point of view at this point with the Fog of War, just to really illustrate how Samsung get this stranglehold. And SK Telecom, even though they're known for making so many big comebacks, look how difficult that would be to mount at this point.
It's like they don't even have wards on the map at all, and they have 2 sites within the team, one from Lulu, one from Gragas. All 5 can buy control wards. Bang just picks up one now, but it has been darkness for so long on Samsung.
Yeah, and every time Samsung goes back to base, I want everyone to look at the inventory. And you just see so many control wards except for CuVee, but he's going back to base now.
Exactly, that's the point. I was bringing it up. He's recalling. Jorm's Fist and a control ward.
There we go. 5 control wards once again from Samsung, and it makes it so difficult to play against them if you can't force team fights. SKT at the moment are normally very good at catching some waves in the side lanes, slow push them out, and then go back to group as 4 to 5 members and look for the big team fight. But at the moment, they're just so far behind.
Big team fight might be what it comes down to. SKT have had a lot of games like this throughout Worlds, especially the group stage where they had gone 5-1, but they had to make these 10,000 gold comebacks with miracle team fights. Now shut out of the game with all 3 outer turrets gone and down everything else as well. They might need just that.
And we need to look at it from SKT's point of view because that is the more difficult scenario here. When you're lacking vision like that, you have to use numbers advantage to make your play on the map. We just saw them push heavily with 4 members on the bottom side there towards the red quadrant to take away that red buff and try and get a single turret, their first turret of this whole game, for themselves to get some sort of gold back in their pockets, but it's at a cost.
Well, they will lose the top lane tower, as you mentioned here, but it is still fine to trade turrets when you're behind. You just need to get gold on your team, and the fact that Peanut was around bottom side, it meant that CuVee couldn't step in and defend against FLICKR. He had to just back away.
At a very small point, there was no local gold picked up for top lane 2-2. We saw Ambition only get 125, so it's almost like you traded a turret for half a turret. The map control obviously is still great for Samsung Galaxy. They can now heavily push in top lane, and this makes it even easier to play for Baron because there's one less bastion of strength near that all-important objective that SKT can use.
It's still SK Telecom. And SK Telecom's legend, though. They always talk about how no matter how much gold they're down, no matter how much of the map they've lost control of, they never quite feel like they're actually going to lose the game, and they're always looking for the next play here. First one on the list is to try and get some sort of control so that they don't get baited around this Baron area.
And here they start marching out a bit 4 versus 4 right here, but Xayah is now recalled and the Kennen's in the bot lane, so momentarily there is a numbers lead for SKT. 4 strong, they run across a barrel to face check some brushes, a few control wards going down, but even though they've gotten some temporary vision into small parts in 30 seconds, they're probably all dead again as Samsung Galaxy sweeps out.
Yeah, and SKT are spending their time on getting this vision. Obviously, Samsung can then move in and deny it once again because Samsung are the stronger team at the moment. They don't have to fear SKT. They can let SKT place the vision, let them go back to their lanes, and then it's Samsung's turn to go into that jungle. And they can freely get rid of it, and then Crown with this Malzahar is a constant threat if someone is trying to face check.
One of the biggest differences I see in Samsung Galaxy this year compared to last year is the confidence this team has in themselves now. A couple of things here going down, but they're just able to very calmly retain control of this map and increase their gold lead here, even versus SK Telecom, you know, the champions, where most teams begin to panic and begin to feel rushed.
It is important, though, to highlight that FLICKR are getting a lot of farm at the moment. He's been in these side lanes. He's happily saying, you know what, I sacrificed one side of the map to go and actually pick up the CS I need to get my items. So he's still sitting on now 2 fully completed items and QSS plus tier. he's actually very strong in case a fight happens.
And his tier is basically fully stacked. It's at 720 mana right now, so as soon as he gets that Archangel Staff and turns into full Seraph's Embrace, he will have an incredible amount of damage up, but if he can get to that point, but it's still just that waiting game for SKT.
And the timings are working against him right now. Huni has just gone exhausted on Gnar. That means that when you transform from Mega back to Mini, there's a delay before you can build Rage back up and have the threat of the initiation. While during that time, CuVee gets a full 30 seconds on the minion wave on the bottom side here and will press it up to the turret.
This is what we talked about earlier, how Huni needs to actually abandon the side lane and go join his team. Play with the 5-man group to see if they can get a team fight, and he's just catching waves in the side lane. Most other games that he played during this tournament, it was Huni who's pushing for turrets. It's Huni who's applying pressure when SKT are losing the rest of the map. Not in this game due to this AD Kennen counter pick from Samsung.
Nice little smite by Peanut, gets a little bit of gold for himself. 62 for the Giant moment. Here comes the play. They know smite was used. Peanut, though, had a second charge available. It'll be up soon enough as they get the first and only blue trinket out of Bang.
Remember that this is a Samsung Galaxy backed by 2 Mountain Drakes and a 3rd one is on the way.
Yeah.
They don't have to rush at that Baron right there. They're just poking around for the cooldown. Now that the vision is in air, let's see.
I really love the play when you start it, you bait out the blue trinket, you kill it, you go back to your mid lane, push it, and then you go back again!
Going for the play, can he get himself in? He's suppressed! The burst damage! Oh! The play was too early! Peanut with the game-saving Baron steal! And here comes the re-engage, he bounces back, first blood still goes to Samsung Galaxy. Huni TP's in, but it's 5v4. Huni doesn't have a lot of places to go. FLICKR likely to lose his life. The flank from AD Kennen. They've got 2, now make it 3 as Bang is forced to run away. He's chased down, he's silenced and dead. Huni can try to Baron recall out, they can't see him. But 4-0 to Samsung Galaxy.
SK Telecom got the Baron steal, but they forgot about CuVee. As soon as he joins the fight and flinks around the backside, there's only one survivor, and it's Huni himself, left alone to defend.
The call though was good from Samsung. Go back to the Baron. When Peanut tries to steal it, you ult him with the Malzahar. But everyone seemed to stop damage on Baron itself.
They jumped on Peanut instead of saying he's suppressed. He literally cannot do anything.
Let's see it again here. When Peanut gets into the pit, Crown wants to ult him instantly. It's actually smart by Peanut to try and ult Crown away, but now Ruler is hitting the Gragas instead of the Baron. You don't need to kill Gragas, you can kill Baron.
But Ambition is the one who uses his smite early in the end there, even though the call for the whole team was to stop damage on Baron, so
it's a bad call.
Ambition really has a bit of explaining to do.
Seems like it's a split call. Do you kill the Gragas and then the Baron, or do you suppress the Gragas and kill the Baron?
And it's in moments like those where you see poise and experience really come out. That being said, 4 kills here were cleaned up on the outside from Samsung Galaxy.
It was 4 kills, but the only objective taken was that 3rd Mountain Drake. There's now a long 6-minute lull for neutral objectives, and with that Baron buff on Huni, he has a bit of pressure on the side lane. Samsung Galaxy resets on their 4,000 gold lead. We'll see what they can do next.
All right, CuVee right now needs to be careful because we have Wolf and Peanut knock their way down to the bottom lane here, but all of Samsung coming from mid now.
Question is, what can they play for? A delayed game probably benefits SKT, letting FLICKR scale up, and the only thing, again, they can push is turrets. So Samsung Galaxy need to move forward.
All that SKT want right now is Huni to get a turret and some gold with the Baron buff. He's trying on top side, but they're actually expending the teleport here from CuVee. And again, this is still the AD Kennen, and it's extremely threatening here in the side lane.
Well, maybe some concern about being outscaled. Of course, you can't necessarily count out Janna, Xayah, but a concern you can think about SKT, incredible late game team fighters in their own right. They'll push forward in this game.
That's where we've seen SKT come back so often in this tournament. They're down, 2-1 in series, and suddenly the 4th game, it's one big late game team fight, and they swing it all around, and then they win that game 5 as well. But in this game here, getting the Baron delayed Samsung, it doesn't mean SKT are suddenly winning, because they're still down in gold, 3 Mountain Drakes, and this draft from Samsung in late game fights is still scary.
Yep, don't get ahead of yourself. This is a multi-step process. SKT have completed step number 1, though. See if they actually are able to get any further in that process, because Samsung right now stabilizing, during that Baron buff and still trying to keep that lockdown on vision that we mentioned to open up the opportunity for Zach.
Going for FLICKR now. He does sense it and gets away in time, but the attempt at a dive was there. Now he's in safety in pocket 4, and never mind, no fight.
Important little ward placed around that blue buff from SKT to see the move from mid to the bottom lane here, but also gotta look at SKT's items. There's still only QSS on the side of FLICKR. So Crown, once this flash is ready again, can flash ulti onto almost any member on SKT and they can burn that guy down.
Well, it seems like we're going to be in a lull in the action, though. Samsung Galaxy not really a team to dive. They're the ones that play around vision control and taking over the jungle. They do get a little bit of pressure in the mid lane, so they are getting these chips in. Of course, that triple Mountain Drake means those chips are giant chunks out of the turret every auto attack, but it seems like they're still going to play very patient, and we have some time to go for the next fight.
And one of the reasons for SK Telecom's confidence here, even though they have a lot of champions that require skill to pull off in these team fights, they do have an extremely powerful late game, as you mentioned before, and very well could, again, be mounting one of those huge comebacks.
And they have that experience we always talk about with SKT, and the team saying, you know what, the game is never lost. There's always a way back. Wait for one mistake, and you can punish that. We saw the Baron fight. That went in favor of SKT to get the Baron. They're now hoping that Samsung will overextend. CuVee doesn't have teleport at the moment. Huni's TP is ready, meaning if Samsung are pushing with 4 members while CuVee is in a side lane, there is a chance for SKT to force a fight and do what we have seen them do so often.
That moment is not right now. Huni just now is tired. Again, cannot go back to Mega Gnar, and insight lines with CuVee means he can easily land the stun through his ultimate, so matched well enough. If Huni ever runs far away from the lane, that's when you can start to see those openings here. Mind you, Frozen Mallet on both these top laners means a chase down is certainly viable.
SKT also needs Samsung to start pushing with the 4. Like, they can't just TP in randomly if Samsung are sitting far back on the map, so they're kind of hoping that Samsung will overextend in the mid lane. There is a ward in the mid here, just past the minion wave at the bottom of your screen. That is a potential ward for Huni to use if they can start a fight.
Remember, FLICKR is the member of SK Telecom that got the early Quicksilver Sash. So even when you see Crown creeping around in the fog of war, there are still options left for FLICKR. All summoners available as well for both of these squads, except for the teleport on CuVee. So much of this snowball will be determined by the next play, the big team fight that is set up here.
And we can see what we talked about earlier with SKT. Through the group stage, that blue line at the bottom. Again, this was that's their goal on average when they went 5-1. Right? They won almost all of those games. They were able to get these comebacks, and as you can kind of tell from the numbers, those aren't that gigantic. Neither really is SKT's deficit here. They have come back from worse, but what matters is the next minute right here. As Baron's coming up, the 4th Drake as well. It's about Samsung's mantra, vision control, make it darkness, play for that play one more time.
What's also important about that goal graph is how SKT in the semifinal against RNG did not fall really far behind like we have seen in the group stages. They had obviously the game 3 where everything went wrong against Uzi's Vayne, but apart from that, SKT had better early games and were more even when they moved towards the later stages of the game. This first game against Samsung, they straight up lost early game. Lost the first turrets, couldn't kill the Malzahar in the mid lane, and they've been behind all game long because of that.
So this is now the moment that starts to matter again. We had that 6-minute lull when SKT stole the Baron, and a mid lane 2-2 fell, and that was it. It's now about this one. The summoners being up, the ultimates available, the vision control, CuVee on his red buff. It's Samsung's game to play, and it's up to what tactics they want to use to wedge this game open.
That moment approaching quickly here. Baron now spawning, and this is the triple Mountain Drake. This changes the game so much, depending on the spawns here. Samsung can annihilate this Baron incredibly quickly. So you have to set up the play by getting CuVee splitting on the bottom side to mount that pressure and force SK Telecom into the difficult choice.
And Huni is here already because he's trying to get control of the mid lane, trying to allow SKT to push the wave and actually walk into the Baron area through the river so they can kill some of these control wards. But now, SKT were not there to commit, and now Huni has to go back to the bottom lane, and it's actually CuVee who can either take tower or move to mid himself and get Samsung full control.
And once again, it will be mini Gnar as Huni's form times out. You're going to have a little bit of time for CuVee with the minions. They now see Huni is there. They know he's back in a mini. They know a TP is not a threat from him. And you can see Kennen far away, waiting for maybe a TP location. Though the damage is not high, the crowd control is still the same out of AD Kennen, and he can lock in SKT if they do want a team fight.
Huni getting locked up into the 1v1 here. He does not want with CuVee having double buffs at the moment. And Samsung apply the pressure.
It's so fast. Damage up, but not even a chance. They played the vision. They pushed the team away. There was no TP flank to be had. Well played, Samsung Galaxy.
It's such a great setup. You get full control of top lane and mid lane where you have the minions pushing for you. So the enemy team can't walk into the river. They can only show up behind the Baron. But we saw Samsung right there have the vision control, burn down the Baron with 3 Mountain Drakes, and SKT, they cannot react. And suddenly, we sit with Samsung's Mountain Drake and Baron buff. They're now looking for that inhib.
I want to see really quickly the dregs of the SKT vision, because obviously they had no chance at all of checking it, and you can see just how deep their wards even were. They saw their own red buff, and that was it. Any of those brushes could have had Schrodinger's Malzahar in it, and it would have been a dead to anyone but FLICKR if they had face checked it.
Still only 1 QSS on the side of SKT.
Yeah, as Malzahar, very often, especially late game, the better option to just ultimate the front line, get your percentage damage down, and make sure that you're safe as far as the tank-to-tank battle. Try and work your way through.
And Ruler's big. Keep in mind, he's at 70% crit Infinity Edge in. He will melt through this front line. His individual gold lead is 5,000 over pretty much any of the tanks of SKT, and that's Peanut, who went Merc Treads, which doesn't defend, and also going for Nightspell, which is not a good self-defensive item either. Mid lane now under fire, another turret falls.
They burn it down so fast, and Samsung right now are not looking for big team fights. They're playing the map. It's only 4 kills to 0, 33 minutes, and SKT not even getting a kill, and only getting 1 tower.
Samsung Galaxy have worked their entire year to get back to this moment. Their rematch with SK Telecom, and they're opening it with a very confident game number 1 here. Moments away from cracking the inhibitors.
They're making a statement in the first game. They're not afraid of SKT drafting a bit more for the early game. They're fine blind picking a Malzahar as well. And they're not giving SKT any chance to engage these fights here. Ruler, with his ulti on Xayah, is so confident in the front line. Bang is trying now.
Going for the damage on Ambition. The tank, though, still at 1,500 health. Ambition rich enough. He's actually got about as much as Bang does individually gold-wise, and there's just no play to be had. We saw Bang toss the ulti out, couldn't find anything with it, and back we are now in mid lane siege.
Xayah, Janna is just so incredibly safe because of the ultimates of these 2 champions and the answers that they have for any sort of SK Telecom threat that tries to get back there to deal with that damage source. You talk about the gold leads on him, Freak. It's absolutely insane, the difference he can put out. And SKT almost feel like their only option is go after the split pusher instead.
They slowed down. He doesn't have a lot of ways out of this one. Finds
Find
some time. Look for Huni. Can't quite get on the shields. Are in time for Wolf, the redemption as well. The top lane still being attacked. That turret down to half HP. Ruler still feels safe, no longer blocked down by the miasma of Cassiopeia, and now another inhibitor has been made open for Samsung Galaxy.
It's the perfect game for Samsung to get all of these Mountain Drakes, because again, they're playing the map. They're constantly pulling SKT around to multiple lanes. This Kennen here can take down a tower. We've seen Ruler multiple times now just stand in the front, hit the tower a few times, and it dies so fast.
Yeah, Samsung Galaxy love risk-free gameplay. Not overstaying here for the second inhibitor, backing off as soon as that one is complete, and CuVee gets to pick up the Ocean Drake.
Also very important if we look back at how SKT have been winning a lot of games through FLICKR. It's been when he's been on champions that has some global. Talia, Galio, champions where you can impact multiple lanes at the same time. The Cassiopeia cannot do that. That's focused on you winning your lane in mid, and that is what Samsung were looking for. So FLICKR is suddenly not but top and mid at the same time.
It is truly something to highlight in this matchup. Even though SK Telecom have FLICKR, the greatest player of all time, the brightest star, Samsung Galaxy pride themselves most on their team play and their coordination.
And it doesn't matter if you're the greatest player in the world if you never get to fight anyone. If you never actually get to use your mechanics and your skills, because the team you're playing against are like, yeah, no, we don't need to fight you, we just run around you.
And of course, Ambition has, I think, cleanly out-juggled Peanut so far in this game. CoreJJ and the rest of the squad have had better vision control than SKT as well, and that Samsung Galaxy style, the one they brought to Worlds, perfected throughout these years. They're going to play in the top jungle, not going to find that one as Ambition gets away with quick reflexes and walks away from the barrel. The siege can continue top lane.
Seen twice now Bang trying to fire that ulti here to start a fight in the last few minutes.
Flash ult, and it's going to beat the Quicksilver Sash out, but it's just a trade of Flash ulti for an active item, and Ruler is completely fine.
Meanwhile, on the bottom side, CuVee takes his toll. He's inside the base, and there they go!
Going for another one. Crown does kite away, but the Let's Bounce brings Ambition back into safety. Another bit of poke out from Bang, and it does not matter. The top inhibitor dies, and simply there is no fight to be had for SKT. The bottom gone as well. SKT's base in shambles. And the fight continues as Bang now forced back away. Ruler safe enough. Kites away from FLICKR. Good damage here. Gets the knockup. A bit of healing as well. The barrier pop of FLICKR. Almost gets himself the solo kill. Now forced to run away, but kites forward. Gets away from the knockup. Gets rooted in, and Crown gets himself as they keep pushing forward, super minions in tow.
Samsung Galaxy only give up 1 turret this entire game and absolutely dominate SK Telecom.
A complete domination to this one. They're looking for a couple more kills to pad the stats, but there is no way back in this one for SKT. The slicing maelstrom in there. 7-0 in the game. 2 more to go. Samsung Galaxy strike down SKT in the first.
Almost a perfect game opener from Samsung Galaxy. What a resounding statement here they've made.
And it all starts in the early game. SKT try and counter the Samsung strategy. They try and pick a strong bot lane that can win. They try and pick a strong counter pick in mid that can win. Beat Crown, get FLICKR ahead so he can take over the game. But SKT got outplayed in the early game in this first one here.
During LCK in the summer this year, every time that these two teams had matched up previously and Ruler had Varus, they won. Every time he did not have Varus, they lost. But now they've broken the trend, and you could definitely put Xayah up there for him.
What you can say for trends, though, is this lineup, since Summer Split onwards, these 5 players are now 5-0 in games against SKT when they lost in the postseason. That was different players. They had decided to play Haru, but it seems like having ambition there. The voice is so important alongside this bot lane. This lineup, 5 games in a row, wins against SKT.
And some of these struggles we have seen regarding SKT's early game showed themselves in the first game here as well. Peanut did not have an impact at all on this Gragas here. Ambition was more active on a Zac in the early game than a Gragas here from SKT's side. FLICKR didn't win his lane hard enough. Bot lane suddenly, after a few items, couldn't actually do anything, and you start losing across the entire board because CuVee was controlling topside all game long.
Yeah, one of the biggest things we always talk about with Ambition is his in-game leadership and how much he brings to this team. So you can forgive things like the Baron being stolen by Peanut in that sort of brief breather that the SK Telecom were able to get for themselves.
Well, game 1 went to Samsung Galaxy. Now to get their thoughts on how that first blow was struck, let's send it over to Dash and the analysts.
Thank you very much, Freak. We said that Samsung Galaxy was going to have to play with confidence in order to stack up against the likes of SK Telecom T1. And that's exactly how you come away with a near-perfect game in the first game of a best-of-5 here on the world stage.
I mean, it was quintessential Samsung Galaxy from knockout stage onwards. This was the team I evaluated my prediction on. And to see them executing and see SKT from the draft phase faltering, in my opinion, maybe not taking advantage of what worked for them before, was a surprise for game 1 of a world final.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a strange draft for a number of reasons, but when you're just looking at the order of this draft phase, when they do the Varus and Gragas from SKT stand, 2 purely denial picks. They could have taken Jarvan for Peanut. They also don't need to have Bang on Varus. That was kind of all in, saying that they'd be able to beat whatever Samsung has left, but no, Samsung had plenty left.
I mean, peculiar strategy out of SK Telecom there, but Xayah, we had a lot of questions about how the top laners would interact in the series, and some of those questions, they were answered right away here in Champs, like Kennen versus Gnar.
Yeah, they certainly were, and I think it's so interesting to see not only did he go for the Kennen, but this was not the AP Kennen where you get a lane advantage and you transition to the team fight. This was CuVee picking purely for the 1v1, building purely for the 1v1, AD Kennen Fervor. He goes for a PD, you know, he's going direct 1v1 build, right? This is as much of a focus at Huni and his style as you can get.
And it was also in the playstyle because, sure, AD Kennen beats Gnar even more than AP Kennen, but he was teleporting back to lane. He wasn't even thinking about teleporting bot lane as had been his trend, walking back to lane, holding onto the TP. He was so excited to get back into lane and to keeping Huni down. And Huni was a non-factor this game because Kennen answered him so cleanly.
Yeah, and it was a style play there from CuVee, right? We know that Gnar was a priority pick for both of these teams in the semifinals. So I can understand why Huni would say, give me Gnar, you're not going to beat it. But specifically CuVee altering his style a little bit to then just be better at Huni than Huni. So he did a really good job in that game. And, like, yes, there was a lot of other things that happened, but the fact that they got so much control of that top lane was really critical.
And to be fair, that is the counter pick for CuVee, right? Like, he had the counter pick there. They gave the counter pick over to FLICKR, and I actually thought for the first time really that I can think of this tournament, he actually played the laning phase pretty poorly in the 1v1 with this counter pick that he had. Multiple times we saw FLICKR charging forward into Voidlings that are spawning extras on him, that are putting so much damage on him. When his flash is forced, it's because he's charging forward into Voidlings and getting ulted. And it seemed like he was trying to push too hard in a matchup where you have to play patiently and kind of find your opportunity against Malzahar.
And I want to examine the pick ban a little bit because FLICKR was, as you say, the one that got counterpicked, same as CuVee got on the side of Samsung. What worked for SKT previously was Taliyah, was Galio, was Ryze, the roaming champions. Galio was banned by SKT, not an option. Malzahar blind pick, which is a new thing when it comes to the first round of the draft. It denies Ryze as an option because Malzahar really wins that lane very hard in the 1v1. Taliyah was available, ended up being banned in the second round. This actually forced FLICKR to play through his own lane. Cassio isn't going to have that same map impact. They weren't able to play through FLICKR. As the casters said so eloquently, FLICKR was a non-factor because they couldn't snowball him. And in the end, his play didn't matter.
I mean, Huni, a non-factor because CuVee had control of the lane. FLICKR, a non-factor because Crown had control of the lane. You even jumped down to the bottom lane. That was the first turret to go down. So CoreJJ and Ruler able to apply the pressure in that lane. Jack, you said it in the pre-show today. There is a world in which Samsung just distills their strategy down to get pushing lanes and pressure the map to a victory. There were only 5 kills in this game total, and all of them on the side of Samsung Galaxy.
And there I think you have to give some credit to Ambition because it actually was SKT with the push early on who were doing pretty well in the 2v2. Ambition comes down, he forces Varus's flash, and then that means you no longer get to push.
It almost felt like we were watching a rerun of the breakdown when it talked about Samsung Galaxy winning with no kills. Because I noted down at 20 minutes into the game, Samsung had an over 3,000 gold lead. There had been no kills. Ambition hadn't even used his ult once in the game. It was about as non-interactive as can be. But we were all sitting there from 10 minutes onwards being like, feeling the raising dread that you have to imagine SKT was feeling because it was one-way traffic.
There were only 5 kills in the game. 4 of them came in one team fight. This one around the Baron. A scary moment for Samsung Galaxy as Peanut comes up with the Baron steal. But this will be our Acer Predator replay.
Yeah, and gotta point out that Crown suppresses Peanut, so he can't smite while he is suppressed. Ruler stops damage on the Baron, which makes it a 50-50. So that was like the one gap in Samsung's coordination the entire game was not securing that Baron. But then, almost as if getting the smite made SKT think they could win a fight, they couldn't. They slowly file in and they get destroyed.
No team fight, Kennen. Come on, Azael. Look at that.
Double kill.
Wow, it was all about the Kennen, as you could clearly see. One of the things that is really interesting, though, and this is so much this is going back to pick ban for me, because Malzahar was blind picked, but it's not like their red side had the last pick in the first round. They chose Lulu over something like a Syndra. We saw Crown get absolutely slammed by BDD in the laning phase in that exact matchup, and FLICKR could have had it for himself.
Sure.
Yeah, and looking at the way this one played out, going for what I feel like is the late game scaling pick in the Cassiopeia and not being able to have FLICKR bail out the side lanes didn't work at all for SKT. But Samsung was nearly perfect game by WE in game 1 of the semifinals. So much can change with a minor tweak to the strategy. So I think to Papa Smithy's champion pool point, get FLICKR back on the other stuff. Clearly the denial picks didn't work against Samsung.
As the players make their way back onto the stage, you can see the faces here of the SKT players themselves. Papa Smithy, I want to kind of refocus now into game 2. SKT, with side selection, has elected to remain on red side. No substitutions coming in. So let's talk about this a little bit.
So I was actually thinking in this game, it's like, wow, they really need to have top lane control. And now that they don't have red side again, they're going to wait. They have choice. So clearly they can choose red side because I think it's all about the top lane counter pick for them. They will most likely try and save Huni's pick for last.
And the fact of the matter is, if we're going to see another first-round blind pick mid laner from Samsung, you get the opportunity to counterpick mid lane in the first round, then counterpick top lane in the second round. So red side does have a lot of opportunities there.
It does feel like maybe this time FLICKR will be opting into his mid lane champion in the first round also. So 2 counter picks, I can't see it happening, but I'm so interested to see what Samsung will do and what will be prized, because I can't see first pick Janna being left open 2 games in a row.
Samsung Galaxy absolutely controlled game 1 in their rematch versus SKT. See if the reigning champs can strike back in game 2 after the break.
And he goes back again, going for the play. Can he get himself in? He's suppressed. The burst damage. Oh! Peanut with the game-saving Baron steal.
Untamed power. Limitless skill. only one remains. Summon your strength.
If you want to follow the best of the Rift, then you need T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. We doubled our coverage so you can stream Worlds in more places than ever before. With T-Mobile, don't miss a moment from the first battle, all the way to the lifting of the Summoner's Cup. Another reason why T-Mobile is America's best unlimited network.